Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Friends of the Dar, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. As most of you have noticed, each month on the brochure begins with an image of an historical carpet. Looking closely, one can notice a variety of different motifs. The title of tonight's lecture, New Studies on the Transylvanian Rug Group, promises to give us new and fascinating perspectives, as well as technical information on a special group of historical carpets. This evening's speaker, Dr. Stefano Ionescu, same name, a popular and respected lecturer, has organized rug study tours of Transylvania. You know Transylvania. And he has published a comprehensive study about the cultural and religious background of Transylvania. Excuse me. Born on the border of Transylvania, educated in Bucharest, he has lived in Rome, lucky you, since 1975. He has been deeply devoted to his major objective to stimulate the preservation and restoration of these rugs and to facilitate the exhibition of them. He is the youngest recipient of the Joe Macmillan Award for Islamic art or Islamic studies. Dr. Ionescu's book entitled Antique Ottoman Rugs in Transylvania involves the richest and best preserved collection of Turkish carpets. Those carpets in Transylvania outside of the Islamic world. This includes most of the 400 rugs from the golden period of the Ottoman weavings from the 15th to the 18th century. In his book, he presented a thorough and detailed review of historical material and evidence, providing information about both the origin of the carpets and the reasons for their survival. Based on a recent study, a full classification of over 800 examples of the 17th century Anatolian prayer rugs worldwide, including 2 from the Sabah collection, will be presented. Dr. Ionescu will further discuss the replica projects in preserving the skills and techniques in creating the early Transylvanian rugs. If you re-examine the motifs on the brochure, you will never see a design of a mobile phone. This is just a reminder so that you can turn your phone off, and let's welcome Dr. Stefano Ionescu, please.
I'm very glad to be here. I want to thank the organizers and everybody who contributed to my coming here. And I hope you will enjoy this presentation, which will start with a very short introduction, because Transylvania is a unique situation where hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Ottoman carpets, in many cases prayer rugs, survived in Christian churches, in the churches of the Lutheran community in Transylvania. So I will start, God thanks if it starts, this presentation, which is very simple. Then we will run through the whole presentation, and then we'll have a session of questions and answers. And I will try to do things in a different way. I will try to see the screen with your eyes. So I will use a pointer in order to point some details. And I will use a remote control in order to advance the slides. Sometimes it doesn't work. Pazienza. Okay, so let us start. And we will start with this image from the Black Church, which I think is incredibly beautiful. It is a temple for the people who love carpets. And all these carpets are in extremely good condition because they have never been walked. And I will try to explain you very briefly, because we cannot separate the carpets from their story. It is such a beautiful and unique story, which I try to synthesize in a few slides. Romania is a country in southeastern Europe, and it is close to Russia and to the events which are going on now. Three main regions: Transylvania, Wallachia, and Moldavia. The presence of the Turkish rugs in the Protestant churches in Transylvania is a unique and complex intercultural phenomenon. And I will try to give a few glimpses at the different phases which are important to understand, because this is a process which involves the arrival, the accumulation, the ingress of the rugs in the churches, and the survival in the Protestant churches, mostly of the Saxon communities. Very shortly, we have to think at the facts which regard the history. And of course, a major event was the conquest of Constantinople in 1453. And here I show an image from a monastery in Bukovina, where it is a transposition on a fresco of this event, which was of great importance for all the history. There are no other depictions of this event. Then in 1541, there was the famous Battle of Mohacs, when the Ottoman army, led by Suleiman the Magnificent, conquered, better said, vanished the Hungarian army, and Central Hungary, present-day Hungary, became a Pashaluk, which means it was submitted and inhabited by Turks. Meanwhile, Transylvania remained an autonomous principality under Ottoman suzerainty, maintaining the religion and the organization, but of course paying a tribute to the Porte. Then in 1683, the Turkish army has been defeated at the Second Siege of Vienna, and following this, a number of defeated of the Ottoman army brought to a new situation where Transylvania and also the Central Hungary were no more submitted to the Ottoman rule. All this is important not for history only, but also for carpets, because there is a very tight relationship between the presence of the carpets and the Ottoman dominion of the area. I wanted to point here that the main way how carpets arrived in Transylvania was trade. And this is a fresco, this is a painting from early 1800 showing a trade in Transylvania. And if we look carefully, we see that here there are probably carpets, I cannot say what, and these are certainly merchants. This is a Turkish one, this one probably is a Jewish one, and so on. In Transylvania, rugs had a very special role. And in fact, this brought to their accumulation. They served, for instance, to confirm the social status, and very often they were gift of honor offered to important personalities. They were offered on wedding or on birth, and in the documents they are called donum. They were also, as I said, gifts of prestige or used to adorn the homes, and we know that they were used on the walls because we have the German term Wandteppich, which means wall carpet, or Tischteppich, which means it was on the table. And rugs were also used to embellish the church walls or on the pews. I want to be very precise on this. Everything is documented. And you will ask me, how do we know that the rugs were on the walls? Of course, we don't have photos. At the time, nobody had smartphones, so very little documentation. But we have documents, and there are documents which says that the mayor house bought pins to mount the rugs on the walls after whitewashing the walls, or things like this, which prove that they used to keep the carpets on the walls, of course, for decoration. The ingress of the carpets, of the Turkish rugs in the churches, it's a very important aspect of the whole story. It's a key aspect. We must think that until 1530, the churches were Catholic, and in many cases, in most cases, the churches were painted with frescoes. Only very few frescoes survived, and this is because of the Reformation, as we'll see later. Around mid-16th century, a large part of the German population in Transylvania, known as Saxons, who were immigrants from the 12th, 13th century, brought in order to defend the area, passed from Catholic religion to Lutheran religion. And one of the results was a tendency to avoid frescoes, sculptures, paintings. It is known that in all the countries with Protestant religion, painting was very, how shall I say, reduced in 16th and 17th century. In Transylvania, this happened as well, and we have in many cases proof of paintings which were previous to the arrival of the Reformed Church. So, the Anatolian rugs, with their warm colors and floral or geometric decoration, of course, reflecting what? Reflecting the Sunni tradition of the Orthodox Ottoman Empire. At the time, this was very, very strict. And the Ottoman carpets were quite different from the Safavid ones. In the Ottoman carpets, we will never see human figures, animals. Therefore, probably, the Anatolian rugs were a most decent adornment for the church, but also because they costed much less, and also because this was a product of the dominant Ottoman Empire. Here is one of the very, very rare images. This picture has over 125 years and shows how carpets were kept on the pews. Okay? And in many cases, we find on carpets the wear caused by the fact that they were placed on the pews or on the benches sometimes in the 19th century. A very important aspect is the fact that many carpets are inscribed because they were offered as a gift by the parishioners. And from these inscriptions we can learn very much. We have, for instance, a very important dating information. This carpet was donated in 1646 and it remained there for centuries. These are some of the most stable carpet collections in the world. Unfortunately, in many cases, the churches have been affected by fires, so many carpets have been burned. But where we have such an inscription of a carpet which remain in a church, I think this is a very, very reliable information. So we know why it was donated. Clearly, it says it was donated in honor of God and to adorn the church. Or here it is, for instance, a rug of a guild, the locksmith guild. Every guild used to buy carpets and to use it in the church in order to mark their places in sign of prestige and also as a way of accumulating wealth. Good. This is a long story, the false theories about Transylvania. As you mentioned, Transylvania is famous for Count Dracula, which is a big story, okay, but it's totally a story, a legend. Well, about these carpets, there were even more legends. And when I started this, let's say, adventure, I was not aware of anything. But I knew, I was reading books written by important authors like Charles Ellis, and he attributed to Romania the production of Holbein rugs, Lotto. I said, this is not possible. We don't have in our blood. This is absolutely impossible. Big books made by a museum, by American museum. Still today, I have to convince the curators that a piece is not 20th century made in Romania, but a 70th century made in Anatolia. Just to think how, why? Because in carpet literature, very often, most often, the authors repeat what other authors said, and they do not make research. Good. So I will go very quickly. There are some absolutely hilarious. One of the most hilarious hypotheses was this one, that these rugs in Transylvania were used by Muslims to pray. So as there were no mosques, the Muslims living in Transylvania, but this is not proved because Transylvania was not a Pashaluk. So they went in a church and they took the rugs and prayed, just to give you an idea of, and these are people who work for cultural institutes. I don't speak about people who speak in the bar of the railway station, etc., etc. Everything was wrong. Even the number of the carpets was unknown. You know, Transylvania is close to Central Europe. It's very easy. Okay, this was my chance to do. But nobody knew how many rugs there were. Also because in the communist Romania, nobody really cared about Islamic prayer rugs in the churches of the Saxon community. My God, what a trouble. Nobody really did a study, no, a grounded study. So it was not studied, but this was my chance. So, here is an image from the church of Mediaș, which is one of the most beautiful churches in Transylvania, which has some incredible carpets, about 40 rugs in the collection, including a Holbein, which is 1500, lot of bird rugs, and so on. At the bookshop, you have a book which is dedicated to the collection of this church. And of course, I had the occasion to visit Transylvania with hundreds of people, scholars, and I'm very, very glad to have here among you a dear friend who helped me very much, and who is one of the very few Muslims who visited Transylvania with me along the year. I'm speaking about Tarif, who is here near me. It's not in this photo, it was a different photo. This is the group of Halitur, and of course, if any time the Dar Museum would like to visit Transylvania, I am absolutely happy to organize a tour there. Good. And now, after this very short presentation, let us come to the core topic. But please, fasten your belts. We'll go very quickly. We have a lot to see, a lot to learn. And again, I hope it will be clear. This is the Transylvanian group. It is a group of carpets numbering about 800 carpets, which were found in Transylvania, and therefore in trade it became popular, the term Transylvanian rug. It is purely a conventional name. But of course this contributed to mix the ideas. A lot of people think, these are made in Transylvania. No, okay. Even in our country, there are people who may think like this. And the thing which I would be happy to leave is to have a clear idea about the groups. There is the very rare single niche, then the double niche, then the plain niche prayer rugs, and then the column rugs. And now we will deal with single and double niche, and in order to make a short break, I want to show you this image from a fabulous display of Transylvanian rugs organized in Brescia by Zaleski and Moshe Tabibnia. They hold the most important collection of Transylvanian rugs worldwide, which in many cases it is documented that came from Transylvania. Good. We'll deal with what I call single niche, and this is clearly a prayer rug which relates to Islamic architecture. There is very clear the relation between prayer rug and mihrab, and of course I do not have the time to discuss it here. I only show, for instance, this beautiful photo of the lobed mihrab from Bursa, from Yeşil Turbe, finished in 1421. But if you want, you have in your museum a spectacular example, and you see exactly the same shape. And absolutely sure this is not casualty. This is because there are influences, and because the designers of the Ottoman court, the so-called Nakashane, who were designing carpets and all sorts of objects for the use of the Ottoman court, were in most cases from Tabriz and surely knew the production of Iran and of Eastern countries. So, regarding the origin of the single details, look, for instance, how clear is the resemblance, no, between these two forked leaves. No, this is a detail of the Anhalt carpet from the Metropolitan Museum, and this is this cartouche having a similar shape, which is distinctive for the group. These are all the single niche rugs which have bright ground, yellow or cream. There are 9 out of 12, and somehow I had a revelation when I visited Istanbul one of the many times, and I was with my wife. I visited Suleymaniye, and I saw all these beautiful stained glasses which are near on the Qibla wall. And of course I know that this stained glasses have been changed in 1880, but according to what I learned from Gulu Necipoglu and other scholars, they maintained the same design. And in my eyes, to my eyes, this shape, a mihrab surrounded by a sort of cartouches, is very similar to the general shape of the Transylvanian rug. And more than this, we see, for instance, is in this illustration from Suriname of 1582, the parade of the artisans, we see these forms. Why? Because what I want to prove is that the design is rooted in the Ottoman tradition, in the Ottoman style. It is not something which came from Mamluk or from I don't know where. And I think this makes sense. These carpets arrived very early in Europe, and we have a lot of paintings. There are about 70, 80 paintings of the great Dutch masters, showing Transylvanian rugs. Okay, sometimes it is the same rug depicted several times, but these are also very important for dating, and this rug is compatible, even if we see only this very small detail, but we can say with very high probability that this was a single niche. It was not a double niche, it was a Transylvanian, because all the details match. And here is a key moment which has been overlooked somehow by scholars. Again, I don't know why. Nobody considered this important document, which was known before, but it was not related to what we are going to see. In 1610, Sultan Ahmed I sent, in consultation with the Sheikh al-Islam, an edict to Kutaya. Kutaya was the sanjak of cities like Uşak, Kula, Selendi, which were manufacturing carpets. And he says to all Qadis of Kutaya Sanjak, we heard that weavers who make carpets and sejade in your casas, depicting mihrab, kaaba, and calligraphy on carpets and sajada, and sell them to non-Muslims. Sheikh al-Islam prescribes this is against Islam and forbidden by Shariat. In casas, you are responsible. Warn weavers about this fatwa to obey the rule. Do not depict mihrab, kaaba on carpets and sajade. If one doesn't obey this fatwa, warn him sternly and send his name to us for punishment. It's a very, very strong fatwa, and we can have a clear reflection in what happened in carpets. The single niche format, which eventually had script, was transformed by adding a second niche in the double niche, which became very popular. It sold very good, and eventually replaced the single niche. But there are some facts which are very, very important. And one of these facts is the single niche, as all the prayer rugs, are directional. They have a clear direction. It is unmissable. Well, I will show you that the Transylvanian rugs, although for over a century have been shown upside down, maintained this direction. And now we understand why. And one of the first things is that the direction of weaving is the same. And in the next slides, you will see again the direction of weaving. Here is a very early double niche. Here is a second type with this design of large flower head, which was much easier to weave, because with the arabesque spandrels, it's difficult for the weaver to make the reflection of the spandrels. I know this for experience in making carpets. This is a very simple pattern which is easy to weave. Here is another Ottoman pattern, and these are a few examples with different slides. Consistently, they are woven from the top. Consistently, the border is built in the same way. And you say, well, but how can you show that they have a direction? Look, here, for instance, we have two lamps, this one and this one. And only the upper lamp has a flame. And what is the direction of construction? From here. So it is exactly like the single niche, and in all cases, the central palmette points up, like in the single niche, because this is a rising palmette, which normally goes to the lamp. Good. For instance, this carpet has a cross panel. There is no Transylvanian rug with an inscribed panel, but there are Transylvanian rugs with cross panel. Of course, the cross panel can only stay here on the top, although the first one to be published was upside down. And like this, we can see all this design with the border, with the star and cartouche border, and so on. This is very different. It is exactly the opposite of what happens with Ushaks. Between Transylvania and Ushak, there is a great difference. All the motifs are different. Direction of weaving is different, as you see here. And it is difficult to understand why scholars consider, by default, the Transylvanians were made in Ushak. It's very difficult. There is no Ushak with this small border, reciprocal border, which is ubiquitous in Transylvanian rugs. Again, they are very well documented in Western painting, and these are slides from the presentation which I gave at the National Art Gallery for Halley in London on the occasion of the Halley celebrations. And you see how precise are the details. Every single detail matches. This is the first example of Transylvanian rugs with this new type of spandrels. This is important because this is a way of classifying the carpets, the Transylvanian rugs. And we have two portraits with the date, which makes things very clear, showing different sections of the same rug. You can't ask more than this. And here is a rug which could be something interesting. There is no surviving rug as the one depicted in 17th century Dutch painting. Here is another one, and again the rug is similar to the one, okay. And here, for instance, as the market was going, but they were also trying to do some variation. For instance, in this case, we have a different type of border, okay, with palmettes and a meander, okay. And I want to tell you something which became very clear to me. There is very, very, very little in Transylvanian rugs which is not Ottoman. I mean, all these patterns were designed by artists, based, of course, on influences, mostly from Persian art, from miniature, from book, from the art of books. There is very little from traditional Anatolian carpets, very, very little. And who were making these carpets? Mostly women on their home looms. They were absolutely not made in workshops. They were not made after a full design. And we know this because of the borders which are unbalanced or cut. This is the first time I present this slide, which was not known before. A drop of water, because I found in the Vatican Museum Gobelin, this tapestry, of which we know exactly the date and the name of the designer, because it was made locally by a manufacturer established by the Pope, by Pope Urbano VIII, 1675. So this is compatible with the carpet, which could be 1650, 60, something like this. Good. Another carpet in painting. This is just to show you the different types of Transylvanians and their correspondence in carpet in painting. And what is incredible is that all these paintings I showed you are made by Dutch artists. This means that in the Netherlands there were a good number of Transylvanian rugs. You know how many there are today? 5. 5. 2, 3, three in the Rijksmuseum and 2 other in other museums. This is why I say Transylvania is a miracle. And here another type with a different type of spandrels, and here we can see very well the border, the field, the spandrels, etc., etc. And we have also some rare, very rare images from Turkey. Okay, this is a scene from a Turkish harem. It is in Pera Museum, made by an Austrian artist, and it is clear that the design reflects a room-size Transylvanian, of which no example survived. Now we come to a Transylvanian rug which is familiar to you, the inventory number 75 of the Al-Sabah collection, and I was absolutely happy to discover that this rug is in good company. It has a brother in the V&A Museum in London. By the way, this carpet was exchanged with the Museum of Applied Arts of Budapest in 1889 against books, and it comes from Transylvania. But more, this carpet has another brother, which I know very well because this carpet was exhibited in 1914 at the Budapest exhibition. It belonged to the parish of Slimnik. The parish of Slimnik sold it to the collector Emil Schmutzler. The Schmutzler collection left Romania after the war, and I was fortunate to buy this carpet, and with the permission of my wife, I donated it to the Museum of Islamic Art in Berlin, because these are carpets which have historical value, and I wanted to encourage the interest for such carpets. It is absolutely clear that these two carpets were made by the same, probably, hands. The color is similar, the minor borders are similar, the construction is similar, etc., etc. And this shows one more thing. They were not using a design. It was the woman who had a repertoire, and she was combining her repertoire according her pleasure. She used different colors for the spandrels, no? She used minor borders, which were part of her repertoire. These are quite peculiar, and the same color balance. And consistently, they are all woven from the top. And hopefully, in the future, when you will publish this rug, please keep in mind you have to display it this way, not upside down. Because this makes sense. Like this, it is a gate. Okay? Good. And this carpet has two more brothers. One, it is in Sibiu. It is in poor condition. Maybe could be a little later. It was a little not fortunate, this one, but it is clearly of the same group. Clearly. And another one in Istanbul, where only two pieces survived. I placed on the background this photo of the other rug, just to show how it was. So your rug is in absolutely a very selected company: Istanbul, Sibiu, Berlin, and London. I think as a collection you can't desire more. And I was very glad to see it today. In my new book, I have tables about all the groups, so for who likes to study and to go further, there are all the statistics and so on. And this was for the single and double niche rugs. Do we still have time to continue? Yes? No? 5 minutes, good. Now let us go quickly through another group, which is the plain niche Transylvanian rugs, and I recall a wonderful exhibition. I don't know if any of you visited in Istanbul, extraordinary exhibition. Of course, prayer rug is a very peculiar Islamic type of carpet, and the earliest miniature date from showing a prayer rug date this one from 1436, but the previous one is even earlier. Here are some other types of prayer rugs. You see the similarity, which is not casual, between the shape of the mihrab and what we see here. And I made very clear, you know, when you have many rugs, you need to make a classification, because otherwise you cannot move in all this. You see, we have 53 with spandrels with arabesques. We have 110 with this kind of spandrels, which have this kind of palmette, flowering stems. 100 and so with this kind of spandrels. This is a lot. About the mihrab, the color of the mihrab in most cases is red, yellow, rarely cream, like your beautiful example, which I was not fortunate to see today, sometimes blue. It is never green. And this has a clear relation with green, which is the color of the Prophet. But you will say, well, but there are Ottoman Kurd prayer rugs which have green ground. Yes, these were done for the Kurd, and let us remember that after, for the Ottoman Kurd, let us remember that after 1515, when the Ottoman Empire expanded, the Sultan attributed himself the caliphal power. So there was a religion background, and probably this is the reason why there are green prayer rugs for the court or for the Sultan, but there is no Transylvanian one. The borders have basically a large amount have this typical border which has a palmette of different size. This is a symmetrical palmette, and this one has twisted arms. These are also presented in paintings, and for a long time these carpets were attributed to Milas, which is totally wrong because all the technical features are different, direction of weaving is different, there are no lazy lines in Milas rugs, and the border construction is different. You see, in Transylvanian rugs, the middle motifs is always centered on the mihrab because it is normal like this. This does not happen in Milas. So all these things totally exclude this attribution. And now I will quickly go to a topic which relates to one of the most important prayer rugs on the planet, which is the second time that I miss. I mean the superb al-Sabah collection, al-Sabah prayer rug, which is an absolute of the Ottoman weaving. And the rug has been described very often, but there are two details which I want to show. One detail is a minor border. You see, you can't see here, but all these Ottoman court rugs have the same main border, okay, and tiny minor borders, and we call, technically, these are called guards, okay, and S-type guards. Well, this is very similar to the border we see in this exceptional miniature painting from the university, from the library of the University of Edinburgh. This has been discussed rarely. It is said to be a kilim, but it's clearly a carpet because you cannot do in kilim technique this kind of border. So this is one of the earliest depictions of a carpet we know. And also another detail is this very small architecture. It's a dome with a pavilion, you see. And nobody discussed it. And of course, in a prayer rug made for the Sultan, it can't be there for accident. Thanks to the photos I received today, I added this detail where you clearly see this small pavilion now. And I also discussed in the past with Tarif about this detail, which remains also in later rugs. And also, if you go to the Saf, now with better photos, I can see it's here. Look, it's here. You can see it also in later production, no? Good. I don't know if you want to know, because we are out of time. I don't know if you want me to tell you what it is. You don't want. Okay. Then it will, yes, Sheikha Hussein. These are Ottoman birdhouses. It is something very, very Turkish. It is something which speak about birds, which have a very important place in because are regarded as the closest creators to God because of their ability to fly. There are cases where we have bird palaces. On the mosques, there were parts of the structure which were allocated to this to birds or to bird houses. This is a new theory. There may be objections. So I prepared an article which I will add to the book, so it becomes more clear, because it is the only one explanation which makes sense that I found in many years of trying to clarify why. And more than this, but this may be the earliest surviving image, because you know, in architecture, because of the fact they are outside, these structures disappeared also for many reasons, okay? But maybe these are the earliest depictions of the birdhouses. Good, and this is a very quick glimpse to the replica project. We are making replica after photographs, not by not drawings, in order to build, to reconstruct a collection which left the war, left the country and the parish during the Second World War, the collection from Bistrica. And here is the whole process, which involves hand-carded and hand-spun wool, natural dyes, of course, design, and it is really impressive how difficult it is to make a carpet. It is really, really difficult. It requires a great ability, and you see, for instance, this waver, no? You will see when she puts the knots, how she doesn't count the warps. She goes directly where she has to put the knot of a color of another color, which means she has in her mind the idea of the whole design. These are the different steps of operation. You see the upside down technique. I try to make things exactly as we think they were made centuries ago. Now she's putting the black, and you see, she looks a moment at the drawing, and then without counting the warps, she knows where to put another one. Try to do something like this, and you will be absolutely, absolutely lost. Good. Thank you very, very much. At the library, there are a few books, which, if you want, you can buy. I'm happy to sign, and I'm delighted to have the privilege to donate one of the first copies of my book, no, to Sheikha Husa. It is a book which costed me about 15 years of research and not less than 3 years of continuous work. But at least if somebody wants to understand more about these carpets, at least there is a good reference. And I hope it will serve for future generations. So I'm very, very glad and honored to present the book here in Kuwait. And the fact that you have a carpet which is, of course, published in the book, but it's so important, like the prayer rug, it's a major topic.